Continue 7:46 p.m. Friday, February 8th, 2019, which agrees with the, wasn't my fault. Which agrees with the Gregorian, on the Hijri calendar, the 2nd of Jumad al-Thani, or Jumad al-Thani. The 2nd of Jumad al-Thani, 1440 after the Hijrah of Mustafa alayhi salatu wassalam. As we continue in the chapter, as we arrive to the last part, باب ما جاء أن سبب كفر بني آدم وتركهم دينهم هو الغلو في الصالحين. The chapter which comes that the reason for the disbelief of the children of Adam is them leaving off and them leaving off their religion is extremism in regards to the righteous. As we were discussing on the 10th mas'ala, or the 10th is where we arrived, right everyone? He says al-ashira, the 10th, معرفة القاعدة الكلية وهي النهي عن الغلو ومعرفة ما يؤول إليه. As we are on the 10th, right everyone? Read it for me, Camden. Why are you not sitting? Where's your stuff at? Oh. I'm sorry. Tfadal, focus. Jade, that 10th where we stopped at is have a knowledge of the what? What's it, how you translate it? No. The first part. What does it read? The 10th. Okay. This is learning that comprehensive principle. As it called al-qa'idat al-kulliyah. So you mentioned the 10th part that's extracted from all these texts. What does it say, everyone? Have a knowledge of al-qa'idatul kulliyah. Even though they translate as general, I think it's more befitting that it's translated comprehensive. Like learning the comprehensive principle. He says this is the general principle, but I think it should be more befitting translated as more comprehensive. It's comprehensible. He says the prohibition of extremism. And the knowledge of what it leads to, of what comes as a result of extremism, and affairs that are what? Reprehensible, that takes place in the end. Of all of what we mentioned in the class, shows all the damage and all the different catastrophic matters that took place of destruction, whether it be in a religion or whether it be in the world, due to extremism, whether it be of murder or bloodshed and even belief. Of everything we spoke about, the prohibition of extremism, and that the knowledge of what it leads down to, what the road it leads to. As we already discussed that. We said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he warned from 3 affairs. In all these narrations, if you notice, and he used different wording, but all of them are pertaining to being extreme. One narration of the Prophet ﷺ, you'll find that he prohibited what they call al-ittira'. Well, first thing he prohibited ghulu, of course. Ghulu. Ghulu, that's clear. What they call extremism. Ghulu. Then you'll find that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ prohibited what they call ittira' in the Arabic language. Ittira'. Where he said, لا تطروني كما أطرت النصارى ابن مريم. فقولوا فأنا عبد الله ورسوله فقولوا عبد الله ورسوله. To the end of it. But the Messenger of Allah said, لا تطروني, which is a word from the word, which is a derivative, or verb, it's a verb from what they call ittira' in the Arabic language. Ittira'. Ittira' is also being excessive. It also means to be excessive, to go to the extremes. So you have one narration, the Messenger of Allah used the word hulu, and then one narration, the Messenger of Allah used ittira', where he said, La tutruni. Don't exaggerate or exceed the bounds with me. So he used the word hulu, he used the word ittira', and he used the word tanattu'. He used all three. All of them are what? To give emphasis for the prohibition or the high prohibition of what? Extremism. But he used different words and different various what? Types of what? Wording in different narrations. So the Messenger of Allah just did not use word hulu. In certain narrations he did. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even used the word hulu in his book. لا تغلوا في دينكم ولا تقولوا على الله إلا الحق. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was addressing the people of the book, from the Jews and the Christians, he says, لا تغلوا في دينكم ولا تقولوا على الله إلا الحق. O people of the book, do not go to the extremes in your religion. Do not be excessive, don't be extreme. And don't say upon Allah except the truth. Verily, Jesus, the son of Mary, is the what? Is the message of Allah in his word. And which was what? Blown into Mary. And he was a spirit from him to the end of the ayah. So we said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word ghulu. We said, la taghlu. Do not be excessive, don't be extreme. Then there's another narration where Allah subhanahu where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, la tuturuni, which is from what they call ittira'. We said ittira' also means to be excessive. And you'll find in the last narration that we talked about in the chapter, the Prophet ﷺ said, هَلَكَ الْمُتَنَطِّعُونَ. The mutanatti', the one who's also, that's a type of what? Extremism, also. Tanattu'. Tanattu', all these different words the Messenger of Allah used in different narrations. Ghulu, ittira', tanattu', all of them are words, various wordings that the Messenger of Allah used in narrations. And all of them is to show what? The dangers of being excessive, and the dangers of what? Of extremism, and the different forms, the types it could come in. Whether it be a belief system, which is the most dangerous, of course. And as we took also in the lesson, what did we say? Not only just in the belief system, but also in what, everyone? We talked about in even the affairs of worship. How one could be excessive, exceed the bounds. And also likewise, what, everyone? We also talked about dealings and transactions amongst each other. Not to be excessive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that all throughout his book you'll find in so many different ayat. Allah wa ta'ala says in his book, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Eat and drink and do not be excessive. There's another word in Allah wa ta'ala says, do not be what? Do not be what they call لَا تُسْرِفُوا, which from the word israf. All these are different wordings, but they carry the same meaning. All of it is a type of extremism and excessiveness. Whether it be hulu, where's your pen? Where's your book now open? Where's your hands in your pocket? Whether it be hulu, or whether it be ittira', or whether it be tanattu', and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also used another word which is called israf. Israf also means to what? Be excessive. For eat and drink and do not be excessive. Verily Allah does not love the musrifeen. Those who are what? Those who are excessive. And excessiveness, as we know, is a type of what? Of one transgressing the bounds, which is also a type of what? Extremism in certain affairs. So we said, Ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, Allah ta'ala, what's extracted from these texts? The prohibition of extremism. Whether it be in belief, whether it be in statements or actions. As we know, extremism can fall in any of those what? Those ways. And the most dangerous is belief. The belief system is the most dangerous out of all of the matters. But extremism can also be in what? It can also be in statements. And it can also be what? It can also be in actions. And it can be in what? In the ibadah, and in worship. And it can be in what? It could be in transactions and dealings amongst the people. We gave examples of all different types. For example, extremism in the aspect or the affair of belief. What's an example of that? As far as the belief. What do we say, everyone? Give an example of excessiveness in belief, extremism in belief. Ahsant. Believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one with the creation is one with Allah. That's excessive. It's being excessive to the point, like we said. Well, we said something else before that. There's something else I wanted to talk about. Reading the text of what the Messenger of Allah said. I mean, it's exactly what Umar just said. I just wanted to put a little bit more of detail in it. What do we say? The Hadith, the Prophet ﷺ made it clear. If you go in your chapter, it's exact agreement to what you just mentioned. Which Hadith? What the Messenger of Allah ﷺ say? What the Messenger of Allah ﷺ say? He says, do not what? To be excessive in your praise of me. Just as you did as the Christians did Ibn Maryam. They praised the Prophet ﷺ. Well, firstly, they praised Jesus, the son of Mary, to the point where they raised him to a what? To a deity of worship. They raised Jesus, the son of Mary, to the point where they what? Deitized him. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ likewise prohibited this what? Prohibited this type of what? Extremism. Of course, knowing his status, alayhi salatu wasalam, and knowing what he deserves of reverence, respect, and glorification as far as of his sunnah, those things are what? Those things are evident. There's no doubt in that. However, raising him to the level of being a deity of worship or excessiveness to the point where he's deitized, that is the affair which is what? Extreme. That's extremism. And that's exactly what the Christians fell into from before. And still to this day. So it's no difference in what they fell into, but it's still called extremism. They deitized Jesus, the son of Mary, and made him part of Allah, or made him the son of Allah, or made him the third of three. So we said, Ya Ma'ish al-Ikhwan, that this is a type of what? Excessiveness. That was what? That took place with the Christians. But before that, we mentioned another narration. What happened with the people of Nuh? The people of Nuh, what happened? Which is another type of example of excessiveness in what? In belief. We talked about how one could be excessive even in love. One could be excessive in love. As we talked about what happened with the people of Nuh. They were excessive, where Shaitan was allowed to utilize their emotions to the point where he made them fall into misguidance as being extreme. Number one, in an affair of love. Loving the righteous is obligatory. But now, if one does not put the reins in order to control those feelings so everything can be put in its proper place, that excessiveness in love led to something else. That excessiveness in love, as far as with the righteous, led it down the road of what? Of where they now wanted to what? Remember those righteous people by either taking or sculpting those different types of carvings that they would do with the statues in order to remember their what? Their righteousness, and to remember their uprightness, and also to what? To glorify them. To the point where that love, like we said, or that excessiveness in love went to the extreme. Until, like we said, ultimately it would lead down to it, inevitably, of course, was the polytheism that took place, which was the first of polytheism which took on the face of the earth. But ya ma'ish al-ikhwa, even Shaitan comes to the affair of the abd, as we'll discuss. He makes you also want to fall into excessiveness in love. And also excessiveness in what? Even in fear, and in the affairs of what? Of your emotions. So it's incumbent upon one to be very, very cautious. To not be excessive in love, and not to be excessive in what? As far as your hatred. We already talked about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Everyone? We said about a couple of weeks ago the hadith of Abu Hurairah. The Prophet ﷺ clearly mentioned and said, أحبب حبيبك هونا ما عسى أن يكون بغيضك يوما ما وأبغض بغيضك هونا ما عسى أن يكون حبيبك يوما ما. We said the hadith which Imam al-Bukhari mentioned, Adab al-Mufrad, and also Imam al-Albani declared to be authentic, other than Imam al-Albani. What Abu Hurairah said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, love who you love moderately. Love who you love moderately. He said, for very perhaps maybe one day you can what? He might become a baghid, someone that's obligatory for you to hate. and you won't be able to hate him. And abghid baghidak hawnan ma, and hate who you hate moderately. For verily one day he might be someone you will have to love, and you will not be able to love him. What do we mean by, for example, love who you love moderately? Meaning in accordance to the boundaries of the Kitaab and Sunnah, to love an individual. And to put your love in its proper place. And everything to be put where it should be. Not where now you're being excessive, where one crosses the other. We love Allah Ta'ala, but not the love of worship in regards to the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. That's another type of love. We love him for the Messenger of Allah, but not the love of worship. That's now being excessive. For those matters is what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was teaching. You'll find that also those from the deviant sects who deviated in this affair of love was the Sufis. You'll find from Sufism and from their teachings is that they say that we worship Allah upon love only. That's it. There is no raja, there is no khawf, there is no hope for what Allah has a reward, and there is no fear. They say that's only for the abid, as they say, some of their statements. They say that's only for the regular common folk or the regular worshippers. But those who are considered from the Sadat, those from the prominent who has reached a high status, they only worship Allah upon love. That's it. We only worship Allah Ta'ala upon mahabba. Without any what? Without any raja and without any khawf. For verily you'll find that Shaitan made all these deviant sects fall into some type of extremism. Whether it be extremism in love, or whether it be extremism in khawf, or whether it be in extremism in the raja. You'll find, for example, the deviant sects that worship Allah upon fear, fihi, yani nazat al-khawarij, that those who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon fear, without any hope for His mercy, and without any hope for His reward, is the khawarij, from the Mu'tazila and the khawarij and the Mu'tazila. As you'll find that they just worship Allah based upon fear. That's it. Fear, 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 fear. Excessiveness in affair of what? Excessiveness in what, everyone? You writing this down? Not only emotions, but the excessiveness in the affair of what? Of khawf, of fear. They worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon fear. That's it. Fear to the point where if a person fell into something of a sin or mistake, he's done. That individual now has been corrupted by Shaitan, made him fall into extremism in the affair of fear. So whoever worships Allah based upon fear only has fell upon or fell into an inclination of the Khawarij. And whoever worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon raja, just hoping what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hoping is for reward without fear, and that is the inclination of the Murji'ah, of the deviant sect called the Murji'ah, or people of Irja. And whoever worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon love, and that's it, then that's the inclination of Zandaqa. You'll find Ahl al-Ilm saying that person is a person of Zandaqa. That person is considered a heretic. A person that is what? He's what they call a heretic. A person of deviance, of course. So now it's upon a person who's now the mu'min, who's in between. He worships Allah upon love. He worships Allah upon what he hopes for Allah's mercy. And he worships Allah upon fear. All three of those matters. And he's moderate in all of those what? Affairs where he does not let one override the what? Above the other. Or does not let one override the other. He's in between all those matters. Because one can be extreme in all of those affairs until he would deviate. So a person can be excessive in love. Not putting, meaning it's love in its proper place. Until one becomes excessive. And that can happen with the creation. And it can happen even with one's spouse. And it can happen even in one's personal relationships. If one is not careful. As you'll find that Allah Ta'ala even mentions that. قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُهُمْ أَوْ إِخْوَانُهُمْ أَوْ عَشِيرَتُهُمْ. That's not that part, that's the other ayah. It's Surah At-Tawbah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, قُلْ إِنْ كَانَ آبَاؤُكُمْ وَأَبْنَاؤُكُمْ وَإِخْوَانُكُمْ وَعَشِيرَتُكُمْ وَأَمْوَالُكُمْ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا وَمَسَاكِنُ تَرْضَوْنَهَا أَحَبَّ إِلَيْكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ فَتَرَبَّصُوا حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ اللَّهُ بِأَمْرِهِ. As Allah wa ta'ala says in his book, He says, say if your fathers, and I forgot the ayah where it says, وَأَزْوَاجُكُمْ. Where He says, when you say your fathers or your children or your wives or your families or your children, or He says, and also your relatives and your families. Now listen to the set of the last part of the ayah. وَأَمْوَالُكُمْ مِنْ اقْتَرَفْتُمُوهَا. And your wealth that you acquired and tamed. وَتِجَارَةٌ تَخْشَوْنَ كَسَادَهَا. And your business also that you're afraid that it will go away. And you're living, you're dwelling places in your houses that you like, that you're very pleased with being in, is more beloved to you than Allah and His Messenger, and fighting in His cause, then wait until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring His affair. So that's to show what, everyone? That also love for the creation has its what? Has its proper place. That everything is about moderation. And nothing should be excessive. Anything. For excessiveness is what destroyed the people of the past. Prophet ﷺ gave too many examples of this. For example, of what destroyed the people of the past. For إِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ وَلِذَا. He says, اختلاف أنبيائهم كثرة مسائلهم واختلاف مع أنبيائهم. Also the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, for verily what destroyed people of the past is them differing with their prophets and messengers. Well, firstly, it says an abundance of asking unnecessary questions. Meaning, for example, what happened with Musa? Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just said, find a what? Find that calf to slaughter. He made it easy. Find any calf of that, which is, not a calf. But find any baqarah, find that cow, and slaughter it. Then he started asking too many questions. Does it have to be what? Does it have to be yellow? Does it have to be white? Does it have to be big? Does it have to be small? Does it have to be this color? Does it have to be this, that? Musa just said, just find a cow, that's it, and slaughter it. The abundance of now this excessive questioning came as a result of it. You became extreme, and Allah what? Now made the affair hard upon you. You understand, everyone? So all these are different examples of excessiveness. All these are different examples of what? Excessiveness of what destroyed the people of the past. Differing with their prophets, asking an abundance of unnecessary questions without any benefit. For you find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, all these are different examples of excessiveness that have destroyed the people of the past and is destroying people today, whether it be in worship, whether it be in belief, which we just give examples of, or whether it be in worship. Like, for example, people leaving off marrying women and just thinking that they're drawing close to Allah by being celibate and not getting married. That's excessiveness of so-called what? Worshipping Allah in this manner. That's excessiveness. Until they fell into something which came as a result would oppose their natural nature or natural disposition of a human being, which is to want a family and children. When they went against that, they became destroyed. Also in regards, like we said, to those in affairs of transactions. You'll find there are people out there that says everything is haram. They're quick to say something is haram. Haram, 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 haram. Everything is haram. This is haram. That's haram. Coca-Cola is haram. Everything's haram. Yeah, akhi. Just make sure when you say an affair that you also have some evidence to clearly back it up. As I've seen now, even certain people on the internet that they involve in these type of affairs. This is haram. Swerve sugar is haram. And I said, what? Rubbing alcohol is haram. You can't put that in your skin. It's alcohol. It's haram. Yeah, akhi. It's haram. Rubbing alcohol is haram? Yes, alcohol. It's haram. It's called alcohol. That's what I'm saying, everyone. These are affairs of excessiveness in transactions, in your dealings with the people. You have to be careful. Tushaddidun wa shaddallahu alaykum. You become extreme and Allah will be extreme with you and make it hard and difficult upon yourself. And we see this happens to a lot of people. Nor do we be excessive in saying now everything is halal likewise. Certain people do. Everything is halal. Khamr is halal. We can sell it to the kuffar. If it's not to the Muslims, I sell it to the kuffar. Oh, everything is halal. That's halal. Khamr is halal. Music's halal. You went to another extreme. Music's halal? That's another type of extreme. Khamr is halal? Where? Since when? Intoxicants is halal. Weed is halal? How's it halal? It's from the earth, Yahi, it's natural. Yeah, but intoxified changes your demeanor. So it takes the hukum of it being what? Khamr. Changes your demeanor. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? It takes the ruling of khamr. Even drugs, you'll find it, even the great Imam Sheikh Rabi', I remember much when he was in questions, he says rather, the drugs of these of crack and hashish, they're the worst forms of khamr. He said they're the worst forms. The worst forms of intoxicants is such as crack and cocaine and weed. He said they're the worst forms of khamr. Worse than the actual drinking of it or consumption of it as far as it being in a liquid form. He said that is the worst form. They change the demeanor, change the intellect, change how the mind functions. Changes it. So that's what we're saying. All these affairs is very important that one be on guard of excessiveness. It can fall in a lot of different areas. A lot of people, if they don't study Kitaab At-Tawheed, study these matters, shaitan can easily get you fall into one of these matters. Whether you be extreme in belief, or whether it be extreme in worship, or whether you be extreme in your dealings with the people. And I've seen certain people, even in their dealings with the people, you'll never find that a brother, he smiles at all. He'll come in, he's walking and going, has his mouth face balled up. Yeah, he smiles sometimes. It's not that bad. That's not, I don't know where you get that from the religions making your face frowned up. Yeah, I'm on it. Yeah, that's not being on it. Being extreme. Relax. Smile sometimes. Relax. It's no problem. You can laugh. The Prophet ﷺ only prohibited that, being extreme, and the opposite, which is what? Laughing all the time. But it's permissible for you to also what? Joke. You just be moderate. Be very what? Moderate in your affairs. You can joke. It's time to be serious, and it's a time to be what? Time to be relaxed. And you can joke and you can laugh. Being moderate. So those affairs, you'll find even the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, you'll find where he even joked with his what? His companions. You'll find narrations of that. We joked with his companions. Joke with them. Laugh with them. And you'll find narrations where the Sahaba even joke with each other. You'll find that. But at any rate, these are all the affairs to show, brothers and sisters, how shaitan can easily make you fall into being extreme. And one of these matters that we just mentioned is very easy if you're not careful. So you ask Allah Ta'ala to keep you firm and be moderate in all of your affairs, whether it be in aqidatan, ibadatan, or mu'amalatan. Whether it be in affairs of aqidah, or in worship, or in your dealings. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So that is what we discuss, and what it says, the prohibition of extremism, and what it can lead to. Like we said, brothers, we've seen people that have fell into these matters. They've either fell into apostation. I've seen this. Everyone has seen this, probably experienced. People that have what? Fell into extremism, either apostated, or they deviated, or they became a weak Muslim. Someone in the street, basically. Because it was too much for me. You was extreme with yourself until the affair what? Until Allah became what? Hard upon you. You made it hard upon yourself. وَلَا تُشَادِّ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَ, as the Messenger of Allah said. No one is extreme in a religion except it will overtake him. It will overcome him. It will subdue him. It will beat him. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? He says, يَسِّرُوا وَلَا تُعَسِّرُوا. He says, be easy and make it easy upon the people, and don't make it difficult. And if you make it easy upon the people, Allah will make it easy upon yourself. Make it difficult upon the people, Allah will make it difficult upon yourself. Is it clear, everyone? جيد. So the 11th, الحادي عشرة, مضرة العكوف على القبر لأجل عمل صالح. That's going to be the next chapter that's coming. The harm of al-ukuf. Well, translate it for me, Camden. Yes. I like Mr. Camden. Any rate, مضرة العكوف على القبر لأجل عمل صالح. He says the harm of devotion upon a grave. To do some what? Because of some righteous action. Seclusion? No, devotion. Ukuf comes from the word ukuf is i'tikaf, comes from devotion. Doesn't necessarily have to be, it doesn't necessitate seclusion. Just having ukuf or being devoted to something doesn't mean he has to be isolated or secluded. You should change it to what meaning devoted towards something, or ukuf. Devoted. So one now, as it says, okay. It says that the harm that take madarat al-ukuf, the harm of devotion upon the grave, due or because of some righteous what? Because of some righteous action. As you'll find, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ikhwa, the next chapter, with these chapters that we're covering right now are one of the most important chapters, to the point where the great Imam even said, if you understand this chapter and the two that's going to come after it, you're going to find how the ghurba, the praiseworthy type of stranger, if you want to say strangeness, praiseworthy type of strangeness has occurred with the religion. How the people of the truth have become what? Truly people that are what? Strange. But we said this is the praiseworthy type of what? Strangeness. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So memorize this chapter and understand it. And then when you go out in the world and you see what takes place around you, of what opposes all these narrations, you'll find how Islam has become, especially those who cling to it correctly, it's become very strange. Strange in a good way, as far as for those who cling to what is correct. So this chapter, understand it very quickly, understand it properly, because it's connected in direct correlation to what's to follow. It's going to come and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. As we'll talk about, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ikhwa, in regards to what? The graves. You'll find in as regards to the graves, and people worshiping by the graves, in which you'll find that some of the people during the time of the past and those in the future and of today, you'll find that they take certain graves in the affairs or in the places of in the graveyards, building houses or residence, a place of residence. What's wrong? You gotta use the bathroom? Yeah, sorry. We just got up. Those who build a place of residence or houses or dwelling places over graveyards. Or, for example, building something of a masjid by a graveyard, or especially in a graveyard. All those affairs necessitates the curse of Allah descending upon a people. And it's not just a condition that a person builds a place of residence, as we'll discuss, or a place of worship in those graveyards. It's not that. Based upon what you're just reading here, if a person prays in the graveyard, or if a person even does or does an act of righteousness, meaning, for example, let's just say he gave charity by a grave, all those affairs are prohibited due to the fact of what shaitan might utilize or put as a what? As some type of misunderstanding, or even trick the person or the ignorant one that's listening or looking, that particular grave has something special about it or has a distinguishing factor about it, until it might lead to the road of what? Of it being worshipped, of that dead individual. So listen to the qa'idah as it says, the harm of devotion upon a grave because it's a righteous action. So notice that he's not just talking about doing or performing an act of righteousness, as far as what we just mentioned, to another extreme. Another extreme is building a masjid in the graveyard, or even building a place of what? Of residence in the graveyard, and living in those places. That's on a whole nother level. You'll find that the great Imam said to do a righteous action by the grave, as far as prayer or salah, even to the point you'll find that Ahl Ilm, we're going to mention inshallah, even to give sadaqah by a grave, to do an act or give a sadaqah or charity by a grave, also then one should avoid it, out of fear that it could be a means for one to now what? To think that that grave that the person is performing that act by or close by, that it could be thinking that there's something special about that person that's dead in the grave, which can lead to polytheism later on. So he says here, he says, for example, even the great Imam, he mentioned his son, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, المضرة الحاصلة هي أنها توصل إلى عبادتهم. Example, ما لو قرئ القرآن عند قبر رجل صالح. Listen to this. For example, an individual reads the Quran by the grave of a righteous one. Sits by the grave and he's reading the Quran. That's prohibited out of fear that what? That somebody might look in, or the ignorant one, shaitan, will utilize that to think that it's something special until it will be led to polytheism and the worship of that person. Person reading the Quran by the grave. He says even to the point if one gives charity by the grave, until one might firmly believe or have the conviction or the belief that there's something special or distinguishing factor about that individual, that person. For verily that is from the innovative practices. And this innovative practice, like we said, it will lead that person to the worship of that grave. So all those different matters, like we said, all those different matters are prohibited of doing a righteous action by the grave. However, in certain instances, one can perform, for example, making dua or performing janazah. Janazah, if, for example, make a dua for the person by turning away, of course, from facing the qibla, when at the time when they're what? In the grave. You'll find there's certain places where one can now supplicate to Allah. Turning to the face of the qibla and make a dua for the dead, make a dua to Allah for him, for the person that what? For the person that died. Or when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ talked about the woman who died. She used to clean the masjid. And they wasn't able to pray over her until the Messenger of Allah did not hear she died until later. And it reached him. When the Messenger of Allah heard that she died, there was a woman that was, they said, al-mar'atu sawda. She was black and she died. And she used to clean the what? The masjid. And it reached the Messenger of Allah that she died. He went to the grave and he made dua for her. He made dua for her. He didn't pray actual salah, ruku' or sujood. Nah. He talked about dua. Not ruku' or sujood or what have you. He was making dua for her. He said, will you not inform me what happened? He went to the grave and the Messenger of Allah made dua for her. So for these type of different exceptions, but however, the origin of the asl, or the origin of it is, that a person should not perform this ibadat in the graveyard, especially salat. Whether it be of what? Whether it be, especially the salat, then it pertains to those different movements in the salat. Ruku', sujood, all that's avoided in the graveyard. To the point where even you'll find that Ahl al-Ilm say that the salat in the graveyard is invalid. The salat in the graveyard is what? Is invalid. Due to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا تصلوا إلى القبور ولا تجلسوا عليها. Don't pray towards a grave and don't sit on it. Don't pray towards a grave and don't sit on it. You'll find that Ahl al-Ilm in this regards, if you look to the explanation of the hadith, saying that this prohibition of the Messenger of Allah necessitates the invalidity of that particular action likewise. That this prohibition necessitates the invalidity of what? Of that particular action, which is the salah. For not to pray the salah in the graveyard. Don't pray towards the graveyard and do not sit upon it. Don't pray towards a grave, excuse me. Do not pray towards a grave and do not what? Do not sit on it. Rather, you'll find that the Messenger of Allah said that those who take masajid as graves, they are the most evilest of creation. You'll find that narration, which we'll talk about. Like we said, that's on a whole nother level. Where a person now builds a masjid upon a graveyard, or even puts a grave inside of a masjid. A person might now try to bring the different shubha, or the type of ambiguity to say, what about the masjid that's in Al-Madinah? In it is the grave of the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. As we know, that's what they call shanshanatun qadimatun na'rifuha min akhzam. That's an old type of what? Shanshanatun qadima. نعرفها من أخزم. That's an old type of ambiguity that the people of Akhzam still use from the past. They still try to use it today. But at any rate, a person would say, what about the grave of the Messenger of Allah being in the masjid in the Haram al-Madani? That is today. A person would say, there's the grave of the Messenger of Allah is in the masjid. So why can't we put a grave of the dead in the masjid? A person, we say number one, firstly, when the Messenger of Allah the masjid was built, the structure initially wasn't, his grave was not in the masjid. It wasn't, it was outside the masjid. His masjid was the what? Was very small during his time. So the asl of the grave of the Messenger of Allah was outside the masjid. So initial structure wasn't planned for it to be what? Inside the masjid. So initially the masjid was small, and the grave of the Messenger of Allah was outside the masjid. That's the asl, that's the origin, everyone. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? In regards to what these people do today, their plan is to what? Initially build the masjid over a grave or put the grave in the masjid. That's the plan initially. Build the masjid either over the grave or we're putting the grave of the dead in the masjid. You understand, everyone? In contrast to the Messenger of Allah of when he died, والسلام, the whole structure of it initially was not for his grave to be put in the masjid. That's something that happened over time due to the excessive crowdedness. When it expanded and expanded, it became so big and to the point where the grave was put in by what? By necessity. Not because it was the initial what? Plan of the masjid. Is it clear what I'm saying, the difference? You with me, Camden? No, you're not. I'll say it again. If you used to go to Medina right now, if you used to go to Medina, you'll find that the Messenger of Allah's grave is where, everyone? In the masjid. Right or wrong? It's inside the masjid, right, Suhail? Suhail? Cade? He's gone. Suhail? He's gone. You with me, Suhail? That's why he put that hood on. That was the cover-up scheme, huh? I know nonetheless I'm going to sleep today. Tayyib. Initially, if you go back to the Messenger of Allah in the masjid, brothers and sisters, his grave is in the masjid right now. If you go to the Medina, you'll find his grave is inside the masjid. Tayyib. The people now, from the Sufis and other than them, say what? What do they say? They say now, see, what's wrong with us having the grave of a person that's dead inside a masjid? Don't you see what they do in Medina? Isn't the Messenger of Allah's grave inside the masjid? You understand, everyone? The difference between them and what took place in Medina, when the Messenger of Allah built the masjid, he built the masjid. The masjid was small during his time. Of course, when he died, the Messenger of Allah والسلام, was forced to be put in the place where he died. Due to the narration, he said that the prophets, that their grave is where and the place where they die at. We know during the time of the Messenger of Allah, he died where, everyone? In Aisha's house. Right, everyone? He died in Aisha's house, radiallahu anha. Her house was outside the masjid. Close to it was outside, it was close to the masjid, but it was outside the masjid. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? So the whole structure, or the initial structure of the masjid, everything was what? Was correct. Everything was outside and separate from each other. The reason why they were not able to what? The reason why they were not able to expand, now, excuse me, of course over time, especially during the Khulafa and the different successors of the Abbasi and the Umayyah, when it expanded, they had to make it bigger and bigger and bigger because there was a lot of people now. So they had to accommodate a lot of different people. It was more expanded until the point where the qabr was entered inside the masjid out of what? Out of necessity. Not because the initial plan is to what? Put the grave inside the masjid. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? In regards to the Sufis, now their plan is to what? Put the dead person inside the masjid. Is it clear what I'm saying? So those are people out there that will try to say that. They will try to say that the grave in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ justifies for us to now what? Put graves of the dead or the righteous inside the masjid. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does this, they are the most evilest of creation. Whether it be a person that puts some type of living or dwelling place or residence over the grave, or he puts a masjid on top of the grave, or he puts the grave inside the masjid. They are the most wicked of creation with Allah. As you'll find that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned and said at the time of his death, warning from this act, which we're going to say in the next chapter. لَعْنَ اللَّهَ الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَى اتَّخَذُوا قُبُورَ أَنْبِيَائِهِمْ مَسَاجِدَ. May Allah's curse was upon the Jews and the Christians. They took the what? The graves of their prophets and messengers as masajid. Just because we'll go talk about, inshallah, masajid does not mean that you take a structure and make it a masjid. That's not the meaning. And that's it. No, that's one meaning. Another meaning of masjid is that you pray in the graveyard, or you pray towards the grave. If you pray in the graveyard, you pray in the grave or towards the grave, you took it as a masjid. Without you even actually what? Building a structure. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So whether you pray that ibadah, of that salat, we're going to discuss inshallah. If you pray towards the grave, doesn't matter whether or not you build a masjid. Because some people will say, we didn't take it as a masjid. We just went there and prayed, made sujood, make ruku' to the dead or to the grave. You took it as a masjid. Because we know that the meaning of masjid does not just mean what? Just does not mean a masjid itself. Also, when you take a place of worship, you took it as a masjid. Based upon the ayah, as we talked about Surah Thalatha, when it says, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدٍ. As we know, right, everyone? The ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Surah Al-Jinn, where he says that the masajid of Allah, so do not invoke along with Allah anything in the least. We talked about that the masajid in the ayah breaks down into what? Two types. Either the masjid itself or what, everyone? Or when you pray, or when you make sujood, or mawdi'u sujood, when you pray. Also, if you're at that place, due to the fact that a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he said, the whole earth has been made for me, what? A masjid. So anytime the what? It's a time where the believer has to pray, then he can stop and pray in that particular place where he's in, because the whole earth was made for the Ummah Muhammad as a what, everyone? As a masjid. So it's not just to build a structure. If you pray a prayer inside the graveyard, you've taken it as a masjid. Is it clear what I'm saying? Sure? So answer the question. Person said, why can't we take and put a dead person inside a masjid? The Prophet ﷺ was dead. His grave is inside the masjid. His grave is inside the masjid of Medina. What would you say? What would you say, Kaden? Jay. Keep going. Whoa! Beautiful, hear what he's saying. You hear that? He's saying it's 100% accurate. He said that the initial plan was for the message of Allah to be inside the masjid. When it was built, his grave wasn't in the masjid. When it was built. As time went on, expanded, the masjid was moved in out of what? Necessity. Bang. That's it. As soon as you say that, that's all you need to know. Shut the person up. Is it clear, everyone? طيب. Try to finish this up. طيب, the Thani Ashara, we only got a couple more and we'll finish. Heck, I didn't realize the time. طيب, we're going to finish the chapter so we can start the new one next class. ثاني عشرة 12 معرفة النهي عن التماثيل والحكمة في إزالتها. The knowledge of the prohibition of what? Statues. How do you translate in your books? Images. Images or statues? Images? Oh, it says statues in your book, too. Jade. He says the knowledge of the prohibition of images and the wisdom behind what? Destroying them or removing them. Oh, it's the same. طيب. What is the meaning of tamathil? Tamathil is images, whether it be the image of a person or an animal or rock. But in most cases, you'll find that it's put in a manner or sculpted, or it's put in like a image of a person. So, or in a lot of cases, in order that it be worshipped besides Allah. This is exactly what you see what happened with what? With the Christians of today. You'll find that they made statues of Mary. They find they made pictures and statues of the of Prophet Isa ibn Maryam until they have raised them, not only just Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus the son of Mary, they also raised Mary, the high status, to a status of worship. Yeah, you'll find that with some of the deviant sects of the Christians. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even said clearly in the ayah Surah Al-Ma'idah, He says, on the tongue of Isa, well, Isa ibn Maryam, he'll be asked on the day of resurrection, أَأَنْتُمْ أَمَرْتَنَا النَّاسِ تَتَّخِذُونِي وَأُمِّيَ إِلَهِينِ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. He said, did you say to the people to take me and my mother as deities besides Allah? And my mother, وَأُمِّيَ إِلَهِينِ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. To take me and my mother, both of us as deities besides Allah. Notice that a lot of them have what? Images and statues. Especially of Maryam bint Imran, Jesus the son of Mary, and of what you see of those from the pagans, of those who practice those paganistic rituals, who are deep-rooted in paganism. You'll find there's always a picture of something, usually. Buddha has a picture, a old big giant picture. You guys already know about that. And all the different types of what? Affairs that are worshipped besides Allah, usually they'll find and come in the form of a statue, or form of a picture, or form of an image, in which Shaitan utilizes it in order that it be taken as a what? Some type of object of worship. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Jayid. So that you see, I think he's saying that it's self-explanatory to see the wisdom behind why these affairs should be what? Be removed. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. الثالثة عشرة معرفة عظم الشأن هذه القصة. Knowledge of what? How magnificent, the great status this story has. Of those who what? Went into the extremes of the righteous and other than the righteous. Until they believed of those who are righteous, something of an affair in which Shaitan utilized until he gradually made them fall into this type of what? Misguidance. And Shaitan was in what? He was not hasty at all. He waited until the following generation what? Fell into it. طيب, let's keep going. I'm going to finish. قراءة مياه في كتب التفسير والحديث. He says, أعجب العجب. The most amazing of what is amazing, the most, how did he translate? أعجب العجب. They put it, remarkable, amazing. Remarkable. However, it's أعجب العجب. That which is considered the most what? Remarkable, or most amazing. أعجب العجب. He said, what's the most strangest and what's strange that's amazing. You'll find in the Arabic language, brothers and sisters, ajab in the Arabic language, a lot of people think it's just for something what? That's praiseworthy. Ajab in the Arabic language also could be something praiseworthy. It could be both, depending on the context of how it's used. You could say something is ajib. It can mean for something that is what? That's praiseworthy, something that's amazing, something that's astonishing, something that a person did. That's amazing. You could say that's ajib. MashaAllah, that's ajib. Person can memorize Bukhari with Sasanid. There is an individual that did it. It's a person that memorized, I forgot, he was Abu Hakim, Bilal Davis was telling me the story. He said there was a man that memorized Bukhari with Asanid, with all the chains. I couldn't believe it. He said all the chains, he said he was in the chain, quoting the chains. He quoted the chain in the hadith. I said, whoa. He said the strange thing is, he said that's remarkable, but he was takfiri. I said, how can you have that much memory and be takfiri and be misguided in your aqidah? I said, so see how it gathered both affairs? Strange from the aspect of what? He memorized Bukhari at the Sanid. Strange from the fact that even though he had that memorized, he was still what? Takfiri. So he gathered between both type of ajab. Ajab of what's praiseworthy and ajab that's what? Dispraiseworthy. Understand, everyone? You'll find that the most intelligent of people you'll find, they're misguided in affairs that you would think that they won't understand. The most intelligent of people. And misguided in certain affairs as clear as the sun in the sky. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve us. طيب. So it says again, we already talked about that. وَكَلَامُ الْمُؤَلِّفِ مِنْ بَابِ الْإِنْكَارِ. However, to read the whole thing quickly, everyone. How many is left? Oh, we got to hurry up. The 14th, read it for me, Caden. was a good way to translate it. Remarkable wonder, huh? Hold on. You said it right. Read it for me again, Jamar. Read it, and I want everybody to contemplate on this. Tafadal. You read the whole thing. Do you guys understand what he's saying here? Or do you don't understand? Does it sound confusing a bit? Amir said he needs a clarification. Do brothers understand what was said here? Mm-hmm. Jade, it's connected. But this, I sense you're correct. Listen to what it says. This is what it says. He says, what is the most remarkable wonder? Which is what? Them reciting or them reading. He's talking about who? Who's he talking about here? People bitter. I sense. That's what I wanted y'all to put. That's what I was trying to point out. Jade, the people of bid'ah, for the Muslims, for those who deviated from the Muslimun. So you find that great Imam Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab was refuting. That's why you'll find the most, if you want to say, not say sinister, but the most evil, if you want to say, of those who have some great malice and hatred for Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, you'll find the Sufis. So much hatred and malice for him. Why? Because you'll find that what he's prohibiting, Kitaab At-Tawheed, goes against their what? Their principles of worshiping graves to the end of it. Based upon these chapters of what we're covering right now. You'll find that. You understand what I'm saying so far, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying so far? So you'll find that they have a pure hatred, a hatred that's very, it's strange. It's ajib. You'll find of what they want. You'll find of a hatred, of a staunch, of a weird type of hatred of what they have for him in his books, and warning the people from what? Educating themselves with his books. Because they refuse everything they're upon. So he finds it says that the people that read Kutub Tafsir and Hadith. He's talking about the Muslims. Who reads Tafsir and Hadith except who, everyone? Muslims. So he's refuting who, everyone? Muslims. People bid'ah here. So you find during his time, he also used to refute deviant sects for the Muslims. Especially those who are upon what? Sufi. So that's upon the people upon Sufiya. So this is what he goes on to say. He says, وَمَعْرِفَتُهُمْ بِمَعْنَى الْكَلَامِ. Them having knowledge of what the speech means, which is what? That Allah came in between them and their hearts. And this is what I was telling the sisters. Them reciting Surah Al-Fatiha every single day. A lot of these deviant sects from the Muslims. Not realizing that Surah Al-Fatiha is a refutation against them. Because they don't understand it. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? You're saying until, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide me to one correct path. One correct path of what the prophets and the messengers were upon. Those who you bestowed your what? Your blessings upon. Who are the blessings upon, everyone, except their what? The prophets and messengers. The prophets and messengers were upon worshiping the dead and worshiping the dead and worshiping graves and worshiping and begun upon shirk. No, they weren't. No, they wasn't. So you asking Allah to make you like them and and traverse their path and be firm upon their path. Sufis, are they doing what? Doing it. Not realizing what they're reciting is what? Refuting them. Every single day. You reciting it 16, 17 times a day, a refutation against your own self. It's humiliation. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? You're reciting something every day that's what? Refuting you. That's humiliation. So you clearly see here, what, everyone? What does he say? That it became between them and their hearts what? A screen, barrier to truly understand. Even though they read hadith, tafsir, all of that. They had knowledge of the what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. However, Allah put a what? Put a hal, bainahum wa baina qulubihim. Put a barrier, a screen, so they don't truly know how to what? Or they don't truly understand, or they don't know how to apply it. Until they believe. Now listen to this. Until they believe the opposite. The opposite is switched. You with me? They believe the opposite, Camden. What does these deviant Muslims believe? That the actions of the people of Nuh is the best types of worship. What did they believe? What, everyone? That what they were practicing of the righteous, when the righteous did those or fell into those matters that were prohibited, of bringing forth those images and sculpting and putting in statues to the end of it, that is the best way and best form of worship, which is shirk. So he's what? Of course it's the worst. But what he's saying to them is that those Muslims that deviated, switched it. That is the best form of what? Worship. As it says here. So if you want to put in your book and write it in the book, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul, he's talked about the Sufis or the deviant Muslims who deviated, who worship graves. Also, you could put the Shia in there, and the Rawafid, because they are the famous. They are the ones who started grave worshiping. It's the Rawafid and the Shia. So if you want to put Shia or Rawafid or Sufis, that's who he's talking about here. So what does it say? They drew close to Allah. This action of the people of Nuh, that's the action which was prohibited, they switched it. They thought it was what, everyone? It's the best forms of what? Worship. You with me, EB? You understand what I'm saying so far? Tayyib. So now look to the rest of the sentence. What does it say? Until they believed, meaning the Sufis, the deviant sects of deviant Muslims, what a messenger of Allah, what Allah prohibited, and the messenger of Allah prohibited, that's kufr. That allows one's blood and his wealth to be lawful. Meaning, what, everyone? The Tawheed, or what the people of the truth practice, that's what makes the people's blood and wealth lawful for the people. What the people are upon of the truth means the people of the truth. What they're upon. You guys are doing something wrong. We're doing what's what? Correct. Is it clear what I'm saying? It's switched. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? You guys with me? Abdullah. That's Abdullah. Is it clear what I'm saying? Suhail, or are you just saying it? Suhail. I don't like to call him Kaid. Kaid means plot in Arabic. Kaid. فَإِنَّهُمْ يَكِيدُونَ كَيْدًا وَأَكِيدُ كَيْدًا. طيب. So I call him Suhail. At any rate, is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So he's talking about how the deviant sects from the Muslims, from the Sufis and Shia, and all those who fell into this, they switched it. Rather, what you guys are practicing, that's what? That makes your blood and your wealth lawful of the correct Tawheed. Us, what we're upon, that's what's going to allow a person's blood and his wealth to be protected of shirk. Is it clear what I'm saying? So he's talking about the deviant sects from the Muslims. So you find that this is another methodology from all the people of the past, that they all refuted, not just the people of kufr and shirk. And that's it. You'll find that all the people of the past refuted even the deviant sects from the who? From the Muslims. All of them. Without any what? Exception. Starting from the past, you'll find, like you said, brothers, and I want you guys to have this memorized in your minds. Don't ever let it leave your brain. Camden or Caden or Abdullah or Suhail. Don't ever let this leave your brain. The methodology of the Salaf will never change. What's the methodology of the past is the methodology of today. Ahlul Bid'ah was refuted during the time of the past. Ahlul Bid'ah likewise will be refuted of what? Today. And it will continue to be what? Refuted all the way up to the day of resurrection. For verily you'll find that all of the scholars of the past, starting at the head of, who laid down the foundation of refutations, is Allah Himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha is a refutation. Surah Al-Fatiha, when you read and recite it all the time, in it is a refutation. It's a rebuttal against who? Those who what? Are ignorant. And those who are what? Had knowledge. And those likewise who fell into that from not either having knowledge and worshiping Allah upon ignorance, and those who have knowledge and worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon evil actions, even though they had knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayat are refuting deviant sects, the Jews and the Christians, and those who resemble them from the deviant sects from the Muslims. Because there's no deviant sect from the Muslims except they either fell into ignorance, worshiping Allah upon ignorance, or worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon evil actions, even though they have knowledge of the affair, or both together. So you're asking Allah to save you from all of that, and Allah is refuting them in Surah Al-Fatiha. So Surah Al-Fatiha in itself is a what? Rebuttal against the sects. Isn't it not? Allah is refuting sects in Surah Al-Fatiha. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. Don't make me amongst those whose path, who what? Your anger, you earned your anger. Or those who what? Went astray. Tayyib. So Allah sets the methodology that falsehood has to be what? Refuted. Everyone followed that same path. The message of Allah refuted deviant sects. Prophet ﷺ himself refuted deviant sects. He himself ﷺ refuted the deviant sects. He did it generally, and one specifically, but they said the Qadariyya, even though some of them differ as far as in the tahseen and tad'if of the hadith upon Anas ibn Malik. That's talking about the Qadariyya. At any rate, the point of the matter is, the Prophet ﷺ, everyone, refuted sects. Either generally or what? Specifically with certain ones. Is it clear what I'm saying? Though took the same methodology after that was the Sahaba and those scholars who came after them. You'll find no great alim from the scholars of this religion except he has wrote a refutation against the Muslims who deviated. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? You'll find Imam Dar-al-Qutni has a refutation. Imam Ahmad has a refutation. Imam Bukhari has a refutation. Imam Shafi'i has, you name it, they got a refutation. Abu Hatim al-Razi, Abu Zura al-Razi, you name them, every single one has a refutation against the deviant sects from the Muslims who deviated in the belief system of the methodology of the Salaf. What's the point I'm trying to make here? Stay with me. That's the point I'm trying to get to here. That was the methodology they started in the past. Likewise, who now took on the same methodology all throughout the centuries. Like we said, the methodology of the Salaf will never change, brothers and sisters. Never. It will never change. You got only now we arrive to what? The second revivalment of the religion, which is who? Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah and his students. All of them wrote refutation. Majority of the books that Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah wrote were refutations. Majority of his books are refutations. Refutations against the people of logic. Refutation against the people of rhetoric. Refutation against the Asha'ira. Refutation against the Shia in this book called Minhaj al-Sunnah. Refutation against the Rawafid of the Shia, which is called Minhaj al-Sunnah. Wrote a whole book against the Shia. Refutation against the Christians. Refutations against the Sufis. Refutations against the people who believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is everywhere, to the end of it. A refutation against the people of Shirk in his book called Al-Istighatha bil-Radd al-Bakri, which is a tremendous book by Shaykh al-Islam. Al-Radd al-Bakri. It's clear. He says Al-Radd al-Bakri. Tremendous book that Shaykh Rabi' utilized in order to refute Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'ribi. At any rate, also that wrote that book, Refutation. Ibn al-Qayyim has a whole library set of refutations. All you got to do is book called As-Sawa'iq al-Mursala. book called Al-Sawa'iq al-Mursala al-Jahmiyyah al-Mu'attila. He has a book called Sawa'iq al-Mursala. He's called, you know what he entitled it? Sending the lightning upon the Jahmiyyah Mu'attila. He says, sending the lightning upon him. It's Ibn al-Qayyim. So Ibn al-Qayyim has another book called Ijtima' al-Juyush al-Islamiyya al-Jahmiyyah al-Mu'attila. He says there's another book he wrote, he called the Islamic troops gathering against the people of Bid'ah who negate the characteristics of Allah. That's another book of his. The methodology of the past is the methodology of what? Back then. Let's now get to today. You have similar to that also likewise the refutations against the Muslims who deviated from the scholars of today. You find that Sheikh bin Baz has refutations. You'll find that Sheikh al-Albani has refutations against the people of the Sufis and also in their recordings and in their lectures. Sheikh Uthaymeen has refutations. You'll find also Sheikh Salih Fawzan to this day, who's still living, has refutations. And Sheikh Rabi' is self-explanatory. Who is one of the ones or the few ones that's left from that generation. From that generation of the great ulama of today. Sheikh Muqbil, Imam Muqbil has a whole library of refutations against the people of innovations. Sheikh Imam Muqbil, Sheikh Muqbil. Now you have people today come with a new methodology. The new methodology is what? Talk against the people of the truth. Be very lenient with those deviant sects of the Muslims. Without any what? Without any criticism of them. Be very quiet. Shut up. Yahi, they're ignorant people. They're ignorant. We have to give them dawah. That's their what? That's the guise, that's the thing that they've all, that's the guise or the disguise, if you want to say they use, under the banner, they say under the guise of the banner of so-called we're giving dawah. Right? Even though we know from the history of the Salaf, you guys have to realize that there's never been from the people of bid'ah, from the heads, except a small, very small number, if not, maybe you can count on your fingers, of the heads of the people of Ahl al-Bid'ah that left off their deviation. There's never been the heads never returned back to the truth except a small amount of numbers in which you'll find it. I think it can even be counted on your fingers. The majority of the people who left off deviation was the followers, the afrad, or the individuals who was upon that deviance, never the heads. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Never the heads. The afrad, or the individuals from the followers, maybe might have what? Left off. Never the heads. So you'll find that these new people now are saying we're going to the heads to give them dawah. You have the aqidah of the methodology, the history of the Salaf, that it was rare, majority, if not a counting of your fingers, that them people never left off what they were upon. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? Also, likewise, I'll teach you guys the methodology to separate the knowledge of what? What they call ilm al-diyana wa ilm al-riwaya. The general statement is that the days of jarh wa ta'deel are over. Of criticism are over. That's another general statement that they will try to utilize to confuse you. They'll say that the time of narration, or rather they'll say, for example, I'm sorry everyone, let me switch it. Rather they say the opposite. They'll say, see, during the time of the Salaf, you'll find that they took narrations from the people of innovation, which is true. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That they took knowledge from the people of innovation. This is general. So they'll say that now justifies for us to take knowledge from who? People of innovation. This is the last thing I'm going to leave this on. They say this, based upon the past, the people of the Sunnah was what? They used to lend their ear and take a what? They used to take knowledge from the people of innovation. So that now allows us in these days of times to likewise what? Take knowledge from the people of what? Innovation. What's the rebuttal against this? Very easy. This is where knowledge comes in. Firstly, you'll find in regards to the narrations of the past that the Salaf distinguished between knowledge of narrations and knowledge of criticizing a deviant sect. Keep this in mind and we'll finish. Knowledge of a what? What they call ilm al-riwayah. Knowledge of what? A deviant sect. Or knowledge of the narrations, meaning of the chains and the narrators, of memorizing the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. During the time of the past, the Salaf were forced to memorize the chains and narrators in order to preserve the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So it would not be what? It would not be wasted. So in this particular case, they what? They were forced in order to take certain narrations out of the necessity for the preservation of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ with conditions. And you'll find that the Salaf have made strict conditions on that, and from them is that they cannot be a caller to their bid'ah. Caller to their bid'ah, they will not accept any narration. Due to the fact that a lot of the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ became widespread amongst the people of the truth, and some of it became with the people, by default, of course, by the people what? Innovation. So in order to get that sunnah for the message of Allah, they were forced to what? Hear that particular chain and that narration out of necessity to preserve the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ so they could get that hadith from him. That's why they used to say about them, so-and-so, we took his narration, but no, he was a what? He was a person of bid'ah. He was a Sufi. He was a Shi'i. Oh, he was a Sufi. Or that he was, for example, he had the innovation of the Khawarij, or what have you. So you'll find in those narrations, as you'll find that Sheikh Salih Fawzan says, that day is over due to the fact that all the chains have been gathered. There's no need to take knowledge from the people of bid'ah due to the fact that all the chains now have been recorded. So the necessity of now recording to the message of Allah's sunnah and protecting it, that day is what? Is finished. Because we have Bukhari here in our library, Muslim here in our library, Musannaf AbdurRazzaaq in our library, Sunnah Bayhaqi in our library. We have now Musnad Imam Ahmed in our library. We have the Sunnah Daraqutni in our library. Everything is done. Everything's been gathered. Khalas. So that day now of what? Of knowledge, of narration, to get those narrations that are out there have all been recorded. So now the need to take knowledge or hadith from the people of bid'ah has now what? It's over. It's finished. That's because we got all these books in our libraries now. And we have every single chain what? Recorded. So now the necessity to go out and get those ahadith is not there no more. So the only knowledge that's left everyone is what they call the criticism of the deviant sects, which is called the ilm al-diyana, the knowledge of what? Criticism of the deviant sects. That is what's now being what? Being proved and what's being applied right now. Without the knowledge of riwayah, of the knowledge of the narrators, because it's what? They say that those days are what? It's over. So you can't apply that knowledge to when the past, when they were forced to do it, to what today, to when the people are not what? In need of it. As far as in today. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So nobody tried to tell you that. Then you see that the Salaf back in the time, they used to take knowledge from the people bid'ah. They'll say it with a first, they'll try to say it with a face like this. You understand, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? We'll stop here. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Any questions?